I want to be a writer, but I can't figure out what the hell I'm going to write. So I leave college and I try journalism because I have to make a living. I have to support myself. And I don't really like it. It doesn't suit me. He writes an article and then a week later it's forgotten. Nobody reads about it. And as somebody who studied ancient Greek and Latin in college, I think in terms of thousands of years and not in 3 days or a week, you know. I want something that I write to be read in 3024, you know. Sorry. So it wasn't a good fit. So I quit. I wander around Europe trying to write a novel with my backpack. I live in London. I live in Paris. I lived in Ireland. I lived in Greece. You name it. I taught English in Spain. Trying to write a novel. I had no discipline. I couldn't do it. It didn't work. And I started to get depressed. I had spent 18 years or so acquiring high levels of skill in writing. Okay? I learned in journalism how to write under a deadline, under pressure, how to make it dramatic, how to make the opening sentence exciting enough to make you read on further. Trying to write novels taught me about creating stories, which is a huge part of my writing. Working in Hollywood, I learned how to research, which is a huge element, and then the theatrical element, making things dramatic, also story. Okay? All of that time, slowly by slowly, brick by brick, I had developed real level skill. So when it came time to write the 48 Laws of Power, I could do it. I had learned all this discipline. I had learned how to write under a deadline. I learned how to make things entertaining. The whole bag. Okay? And so the world opened up for me. Prior to that time, I was miserable. Really, really was. I mean, I had good moments too. You're young, you're always happy when you're young. But a lot of times I was miserable. And I didn't know why, but I was acquiring skills, not even aware of it. And so the reason I write that is when you develop that skill, when you're serious about it, because I was very serious about writing, you change your brain. You rewire your brain. It's like, and this is a remarkable power of the human brain that people don't realize. Something I'm also writing in my new book. This one writer, his name is Schwartz, I believe. He's a UCLA neuroscientist. He wanted to help people who had OCD, right? Obsessive compulsive disorder. And usually it's drugs and it's talking therapy. He wanted to find out something more effective. And he found that through certain strategies that he developed, that they could use in their life, that they would get over their disorder. And the point isn't what the strategies were. The point was he did brain scans. And through the strategies that he gave them to do, which I can't remember right now, the brain scans show that they changed the brain. And his point was, through thinking, through developing skills, you literally change matter, you change your brain. So something non-material like thoughts can literally change material things like the wiring of your brain. You learn skills, you're changing your brain, you're changing the matter of your brain. Things are connecting that weren't connected before. And slowly, if you do it, if you're serious enough, a point will be reached like it was reached in my life, where either you will start a business or someone will ask you to do something like write a book or make a film. And the world will open up for you and you'll be able to do it because you have that, you've laid the ground, you've laid the soil, everything is there, it's rich. And now something great, amazing will sprout up out of it. When you have no talents, you have no skill, life is a series of endless confusion. You hit this road, you go here, then something else, you go here, then you go here, you end up in a circle and you don't know where the hell you are. When you've got skills, zoom, you know where to go. It's not zoom, it's more like, but your head is somewhere. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're being filmed, but so yeah. So that's my answer to your question. If you believe as if you are confident, as if you are powerful, it will tend to be read that way, right? And so, like, he had the analogy, if you smile, even though you don't feel like smiling, you'll end up kind of maybe feeling kind of happy. So the physical action will create the psychological action, was his belief, because he was very much a believer in the body, I think starting from the body. So if you believe physically and embodied that you were great, that you deserve this, it will kind of become part of your psychology and it will radiate outward.
But for those that don't, they just don't have that belief. Can you lie to yourself? Can you tell yourself, I am strong and I am powerful?
Well, everybody has some good qualities, right? Everybody, I think almost everybody has something that they can go back to in the past and go, I was actually very good at that. That was actually a good moment. I actually was scored in that particular moment. And you can think about that. I mean, actors do that all the time in movies. When they want to express an emotion, they go back into their past. Like they have to express sadness. They go back and they think about their father or mother who died and they call that emotion up. You can call that emotion up of when you did something actually really great. You might have only been in high school when you were on the sports team and you threw the touchdown or something. Okay, think about that and it'll come back to you. Everybody has something that they can be confident about, I hope.
If there was one law that the powerless amongst us, who feel powerless or lost in the current world, one law or one fact of human nature that people who are feeling lost and purposeless and adrift right now should be thinking the most about, which one springs to mind?
Well, there's no one-shot answer to this kind of thing, but one law that I would highlight is interaction with boldness. And what I mean by that is if you're feeling timid, if you're feeling that you're not confident in something, you will start a project and it will fail because you feel that way, because you don't enter into it with the right energy. So if you take something and you do something boldly, everybody loves the bold, everybody admires it. Even if it's stupid, even if it fails, it will gain you that kind of attention. And so, let's say you're thinking about starting a business. Well, just go ahead and do it and be bold about it and start it and be as dramatic as you can and be as confident as you can. And it creates a self-fulfilling dynamic. People admire it. They don't admire the timid and the insecure and the guy who spends 2 years talking about that podcast he's going to start. They admired that bloke who just decided, all right, I'm going to start it. I don't care. If nobody likes it, fine. I remember this guy who interviewed me once. He had a magazine called Bad Ideas, and it was a really successful magazine in like the early 2000s. And I said, where'd you get that idea? And he said, my mother told me that to start that magazine was a really bad idea, right? So I thought I'd put the title there, and that would be the title of it. And I just went ahead and started it. And it was very successful because it was a great marketing gimmick, and it also worked, and it was actually full of bad ideas of the thing, but in a very interesting way. So being bold, being different. Everybody nowadays, I'm getting on my goddamn soapbox again, and I apologize to everyone about this, but everyone is so similar. Everybody is so afraid. Everyone's trying to be like everybody else. You go out there and you start something that's different, that's you, that's unique, that's loud, that proclaims I'm a different voice on it. You're going to get attention. So I want more bold people in this world. We've got too much fear. I'm not maybe a big admirer of, in some ways, of Elon Musk, but damn it, he's always bold and it always works for him. He doesn't start just a minimal business about maybe sending rockets out there. He starts a thing that's going to take you to Mars. He's bold and people love it.
One of the groups, I suppose, I think that's looking for a lot of advice at the moment is young men feeling a little lost, like their place in the world is just uncertain. They don't really know or have the direction. What advice would you have for young men that are feeling a little lost in the modern world?
Well, you have to be comfortable with who you are and with your masculinity. So the word masculine has now got like this negative connotation around it, which is terrible. because you're a young man. It's not every young man. Some men don't feel this way. But a lot of young men, I remember myself, you've got this testosterone that's roaring through you. You're competitive. You're ambitious. You have goals. You have this energy. You want to assert yourself. But it's bad. It's bad. It's bad. You're not supposed to be like that, you know? And so, and the culture isn't about, there's no virtue in masculinity. Okay, there is such a thing as toxic masculinity, most definitely. But there are virtues in being masculine, and they have to be redefined. And we have to have icons and role models for that. And so when I was growing up, oh God, I sound like, I hated that when people said that when I was a kid. So I know you're going to hate me, but I'll say that. Anyway, I can't help it because it's true. When I was growing up, you know, I watched like a lot of Westerns. You know, it was the silent hero kind of thing, the Gary Cooper thing. But my idea of masculinity growing up was a man who was in control of himself, who wasn't mean, wasn't pushing people around, who was decent, who treated women well. So treating women well is a masculine virtue, is a good thing. It comes from a position of strength. You're not insecure about your masculinity. You don't have to prove that you're a man by demeaning women, by pushing them around, by calling them whores and bitches, etc. You don't have to take the Andrew Tate path in life. You can respect women, and respecting them is a sign of your strength, is a sign of being secure in your masculinity. You don't need to put other people down to make yourself feel better. Okay, so we have to redefine these qualities, but there are no icons like out there. You either have the Andrew Tates out of there, or you have these wimpy men who are just so afraid of being masculine. Okay, your aggression, your assertiveness, your testosterone is a good thing. It's how things get done. It's what energizes you, what puts you in the world. What makes you ambitious. It makes you assert yourself and motivate yourself. It has to be channeled. It has to be disciplined. But you have to see, you know, we were talking about our people-pleasing things and how you reframe it. You have to see who you are and see the virtue in it and see the power in that. And it's a cultural problem because men are very confused. I didn't have that confusion when I was growing up, you know. So now it's very difficult because you're being told that all these things that you feel naturally are negative. They're only negative if you can't control them. So self-control is a very masculine quality. You're able to control yourself. You're able to control your passions. You're able to not talk too much if you don't need to talk too much. I'm not saying that women don't have, that the opposite is wrong. These are things that men naturally have because of their biology. And I'm sorry, I do believe in these things. But they're good. They're just how you use them that can be bad. And so I just wish there were more positive role models out there. I know I could be a real bastard. I could be a real asshole. I'm very competitive. When I play games, I like to win. And I can be a little bit mean about it. Okay, I mean, I'm a pleaser, but I like winning. I channeled it, all of my aggression, all of that testosterone. I'm not saying I have more than anyone, I just have normal amounts. I poured into my books. I poured that edge, that aggression, that like, damn you, I don't really like you, I don't like the world, into the 48 laws of power. Into here's how these is how people manipulate. These are how people can be bad and cruel. And damn it, I'm going to get at all my aggression by exposing it and showing it and being as real and direct. I channel it into something as opposed to hurting other people kind of thing. So finding ways to channel your aggressive tendencies is a positive way of being a man. You have to find whatever that is. Sports is a great example, but there are other things as well.
It feels a lot like alchemy in a way. Or actually, alchemy is taking something which is bad or useless and turning it into something which is valuable. This is taking something which is uncertain. It could go either way. You know, this desire for mastery, for conquer, for achievement, and
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Robert Greene, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Chris. My pleasure. We finally get to meet after all these years.
The first time that you came on the show was episode 78.
What are you at now?
5 years ago. I'm on 820.
Wow.
The show is 400 times bigger than it was when you first came on, so I wanted to say
Only
thank
400? You. Come on, Chris.
I know.
I'm disappointed.
I know. I really did try to impress you. I wanted to hit that 500 number before we got to meet.
That's pretty good.
But I wanted to say thank you for coming on very early.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
I also wanted to say thank you for sending me the special edition of 48 Laws of Power, which is the coolest book. For the people that haven't seen it, it's leather-bound, gold embossed 48 on the front. And then as you look at the side, it's gold, so just like a gold boundary on the outside of the paper. But as you splay the pages out in one direction, it's your face. As you splay the pages out in the other, it's that famous portrait of Machiavelli. So cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
I can't really totally take credit for it. My partner on my first 3 books, he did it. He's a brilliant designer. He consulted me on it, but he's really the genius behind that. But
it's the sort of thing you can't not take a photo of.
Yeah.
It's so, it's the most basic technology as well. Stuff that's been around. You used to get it in cereal boxes to, look at things from different angles to be able to make it work. But no one's ever applied it to a book before.
Well, he's a very strange guy. He's Dutch. He's very interesting. We had a good combination. We had a good kind of rapport. And he researched it, and he found in the 18th century, this was the techniques that they would use on the edging of books, where you would flip through it and you would see an image. And he studied how they did it, and then he was able to replicate it through digital technology. But, that's pretty genius. That's pretty interesting. So, yeah.
Who is that guy?
His name is Joost Elfers. You'll see his name on my books, the Joost Elfers book, my first 3 books. And he's the one that, if it weren't for him, I wouldn't be here. I'd either be dead or I'd be still working in Hollywood and probably be dead anyway. He discovered me. I've told the story many times, but he basically gave me my first break, and he subsidized me while I wrote the 48 Laws of Power. He produced it. He designed it. Together we designed it, but so I have a lot to owe him.
And he's still involved.
Yes. He designed the cover of the Daily Laws, and I'm hoping yeah, sure, we're still together, yeah.
What do you think is the problem with modern philosophy? Where did we go wrong?
Well, it's a huge subject, and, there are lots of different aspects of philosophy. But like everything, it's so much in our culture, it's kind of lost its soul. So, years ago, we kind of somewhere went off on a wrong path. We lost faith in just our thinking, in our brains, in our minds, right? So Socrates or Nietzsche, or if, skipping here 2,000 years, they didn't sit there and go through scientific journals about the origins of consciousness and do studies and data and mathematical formulas to figure out how the brain works or what makes a human being. I'm doing a lot of things on Socrates right now because I'm writing about him. The stuff he's saying about it is absolutely brilliant. It's mind-blowing, and it's incredibly relevant to our world today. But if he were around today, people would laugh at him. Oh, it's all speculative, right? It's just subjective. Where's the data? Where's the hard facts there? Psychology is even more infected with this kind of mindset, but philosophy is like that. I can't read that stuff. For me, philosophy, it has to have like a direct connection to my life, to living, to my soul, to my day-to-day affairs, to what I have to think about when I wake up in the morning kind of thing, It can't be all about this ethereal, abstract stuff. I can't get my brain around it. I want to know how to live. I want to know how to think. I want to know how to breathe. I do a lot of, I'm heavily into Zen meditation and Zen philosophy. To me, that is like one of the most beautiful forms of philosophy. And it's all about how to ground your day-to-day life. And you can say Zen, it can be described as the ultimate realistic philosophy, the realist philosophy. It's taking you back to what is truly real. Okay? Yes, they kind of, the language could be very strange. Like they try and present these riddles to you to alter your consciousness. But the essence of it is very relatable. And they want you to be able to take their philosophy and live in your day-to-day life and not have a separation between the two. So I can't read that stuff that goes on now. I just can't read it. I mean, there's some people whose things I like, but they're usually not considered philosophers. One of my favorite writers that nobody will have ever heard of, he died a couple of years ago, so he's sort of contemporary, is a man named Roberto Calasso. He writes the most fantastic books. I would consider it philosophy. He's Italian. He ran a publishing company for many years, but he writes books about the ancient world, and he mixes it in with stories and anecdotes. He has a book called The Ruins of Kosh that's just one of the most brilliant books you'll ever read. That, to me, is philosophy because it stirs my soul. It makes me think. It makes me imagine the world. It makes me rethink about the life I'm living. But so many of this stuff, other stuff, I just can't read. I'm not saying it's their fault. Maybe it's my own fault. But for me, it's kind of gone down this wrong path, down a rabbit hole.
Well, if you're having to work that hard to resonate with the entire world's worth of philosophy, I don't know, I feel like it's probably not a you problem if there's a lot of, you're trying your hard, you're opening yourself up, and you're only finding small glimmers here and there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so there's a philosopher, and you have to excuse me, my memory is not what it used to be. Maybe his name will come to me. He wrote an essay, very famous essay, about what is it like to be a bat? I thought it was great. I was so excited about it. And I did. I bought the book that's in. He's a very famous philosopher. He's actually quite smart, very interesting. But the essay is, you're looking up right now.
I am. Thomas Nagel.
Yes, Thomas Nagel. He's written some very interesting books, but they don't grab me the way that Nietzsche or Schopenhauer or Heidegger even grabs me. But his idea about what it's like to be a bat, he's trying to essentially say we can't know, right? Because that kind of consciousness is so different from ours, right? It's echolocation. We have nothing to compare it to. Therefore, get out of your arrogance. You can't know it. And a part of me understands it, but a part of me disagrees with it. And because I wrote a chapter in my new book about animal consciousness and how we can put ourselves inside even something as strange as a bat or a spider. And I wrote a lot about how spiders think. Yes, there are limits to it, and that's what the point of his essay. But so many times I find, particularly now in the world today, particularly in academia, is the necessity to say you're against something, you're reacting. You know, he's reacting against people who put too much empathy and anthropomorphize things. Okay, so I'm going to write a book that says the opposite, and I'll get attention, and I'll get in the New York Times review of books, and people will listen because I'm standing against something. So academia is all about like having some novel stance, usually from some cultural perspective. Whereas the truth is more rounded. It's not so hard-set, just reacting and going the opposite direction. You're not arriving at the truth. So maybe it's a combination of the two. Maybe there are limits to what we can know about a bat and how it thinks, but we have an amazing capacity to put ourselves inside of other beings and to kind of get a feel, not an intellectual sense, but a feel of what it might be like to echoing. You know, we can get a feel for that. And I talk about spiders and how their form of intelligence is all about vibrations. They feel in their 8 legs, in the bottom of their 8 legs. They feel the wind blowing. They feel the vibrations on the web. They feel the weather. They know a storm is coming. They can sense a creature that has landed on their web just by the vibrations. And elephants have a very similar power in their feet. They can sense an earthquake from 10 miles away. But we can sense that because we can feel vibrations. And, you know, I can't really know a spider, but spiders are intelligent. And the idea that they're intelligent and that they think is a radical idea. So I don't know, I'm going off on some tangent here, but I'm trying to answer your question.
There's a spirit of play in that, which is fun, I think. And I know what you mean. There is a sort of this odd, highly scrutinous, skeptical, there's a lack of play.
You said it perfectly. Thank you. You hit the nail right there.
I learned something else that you taught Billy Oppenheimer that said, above all else, focus on acquiring knowledge and skills. Knowledge and skills are like gold, a currency you will transform into something more valuable than you can imagine. And it's similar to one of your tweets, which is eventually the time that was not spent on learning skills will catch up to you and the fall will be painful. What's that mean?
Well, life can be kind of difficult, right? You don't really know sometimes where you're headed. Nobody kind of gives you any kind of guidance in this world, right? And they don't tell you when you graduate college, go ahead, go Robert, you go study this. This is what, this is what your brain is suited for, et cetera, et cetera. You have to find your own path. And so for me personally, I spent years in the wilderness. So I'm gonna give this a personal spin because I think that helps a little bit, because I can answer it inside my own body here. So I know I want to be a writer, but I can't figure out what the hell I'm going to write. So I leave college and I try journalism because I have to make a living. I have to support myself. And I don't really like it. It doesn't suit me. You write an article and then a week later it's forgotten. Nobody reads about it. And as somebody who studied ancient Greek and Latin in college, I think in terms of thousands of years and not in 3 days or a week, I want something that I write to be read in 3024, sorry. So it wasn't a good fit. So I quit. I wander around Europe trying to write a novel with my backpack. I live in London. I live in Paris. I lived in Ireland. I lived in Greece. You name it. I taught English in Spain. Trying to write a novel. I had no discipline. I couldn't do it. It didn't work. And starting to get depressed. Then my dad isn't well. I decided I'm going to move back to Los Angeles. Hey, I'm going to get a job in Hollywood, right? That'll be good. I'll make a ton of money and I'll be writing and, et cetera. How glamorous, how sexy, movie stars, starlets knocking on my door, et cetera. Okay. Terrible, terrible fit because I'm a control freak. I don't like people coming in and changing everything I say. And I don't like conforming and I don't like compromise. Sorry, that's a bad thing about me, but I didn't want to have to lower my standards to what they were asking me to do. Is a terrible fit. All right, now comes the chance. I meet this man, Joost Elfer, as we mentioned earlier, in Italy. And he asked me if I have any ideas for books. And I kind of improvised the 48 Laws of Power. The point of my long-winded story here is I had spent 18 years or so acquiring high levels of skill in writing, okay? I learned in journalism how to write under a deadline, under pressure, how to make it dramatic, how to make the opening sentence exciting enough to make you read on further. Trying to write novels taught me about creating stories, which is a huge part of my writing. Working in Hollywood, I learned how to research, which is a huge element. And then the theatrical element, making things dramatic, also story. Okay? All of that time, slowly by slowly, brick by brick, I had developed real level skill. So when it came time to write the 48 Laws of Power, I could do it. I had learned all this discipline. I had learned how to write under a deadline. I learned how to make things entertaining, the whole bag. Okay. And so the world opened up for me. Prior to that time, I was miserable. Really, really was. I mean, I had good moments too. You're young. You're always happy when you're young. But a lot of times I was miserable. And I didn't know why, but I was acquiring skills, not even aware of it. And so the reason I write that is when you develop that skill, when you're serious about it, because I was very serious about writing, you change your brain. You rewire your brain. It's like, and this is a remarkable power of the human brain that people don't realize. Something I'm also writing in my new book. This one writer, his name is Schwartz, I believe. He's a UCLA neuroscientist. He wanted to help people who had OCD, right? Obsessive compulsive disorder. And usually it's drugs and it's talking therapy. He wanted to find out something more effective. And he found that through certain strategies that he developed, that they could use in their life, that they would get over their disorder. And the point isn't what the strategies were. The point was he did brain scans. And through the strategies that he gave them to do, which I can't remember right now, the brain scans show that they changed the brain. And his point was, through thinking, through developing skills, you literally change matter, you change your brain. So something non-material like thoughts can literally change material things like the wiring of your brain. You learn skills, you're changing your brain, you're changing the matter of your brain. Things are connecting that weren't connected before. And slowly, if you do it, if you're serious enough, a point will be reached like it was reached in my life, where either you will start a business or someone will ask you to do something like write a book or make a film, and the world will open up for you and you'll be able to do it because you have that, you've laid the ground, you've laid the soil, everything is there, it's rich, and now something great, amazing will sprout up out of it. When you have no talents, you have no skill, life is a series of endless confusion. You hit this road, you go here, then something else, you go here, then you go here, you end up in a circle and you don't know where the hell you are. When you've got skills, zoom, you know where to go. It's not zoom, it's more like, but your head is somewhere. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're being filmed, but so yeah. So that's my answer to your question.
Isn't it interesting that the accumulation of skills period at the time can be a little bit like being in the trenches? You have no promise of glory. You don't know if this is even going to work.
Yeah.
You have no idea whether this is worth it. And you don't even have the context of how the journalism, with the novel, with the Hollywood, with the interpersonal skills, with the guy that you meet in Italy, with the so on, Germany, blah, 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 blah. It's only in retrospect that you get to piece this entire arc together. And I think it's one of the reasons why reserving judgment on whether or not the situation you were in right now is good or bad is probably a pretty good idea, because you just don't know what's around the corner that you've been preparing for that you didn't even know existed.
Yes, but there are parameters to it. It's not like it's total mystery in the moment. So, going back to what bothers me about philosophy, we're so caught up in things that are rational, things that can be put into numbers, quantifiable, data, big data, AI, et cetera, et cetera. But the human consciousness is more subtle than that, is more fine-grained. No numbers can actually approximate what human consciousness is capable of. And what we have sometimes is we have an intuition about things in the moment. So maybe in retrospect, I'm creating a story that didn't really exist back then. But at the same time, I kind of knew of the future. I kind of knew that this would happen. I had a feeling of fate. It was always there. It's weird. I know it sounds woo-woo, I'm sorry to say, but it's very real. And I've studied millions of successful, famous people, and a lot of them report the same thing. Sometimes you don't realize it, but your body and your brain has a sense of even the future and of where you're headed, but you're not totally aware of it. So I knew that I wanted to be a writer. So if people don't know that they want to be a writer, they want to go into engineering, they'll never make those little connections that I was able to make. And having that sense that you want to be a writer, that you want to make films, that you want to start a particular kind of business, you're interested in technology, creates a framework in your brain that kind of changes how you make decisions. You're not totally conscious of it, but not everything in life you're totally conscious of. Things are operating below the level. So it's the chapter I'm writing right now about my Sublime book. There is something in you that is guiding you towards certain things, right? Guided you towards podcasting. I don't know your life. I don't know your biography before then, but something inched you towards that. What is that? It's interesting to find out. It's not all just chaos and random is what I'm trying to say.
That's beautiful. And I agree. Do not be the court cynic. The ability to express wonder and amazement and seem like you mean it is a rare and dying talent, but one still greatly valued.
Yeah, I mean, I can recall my own childhood, for instance, growing up here in Los Angeles. And I had a very vivid imagination, which I'm not unusual like that. Most children do. But I was always inventing games. I loved inventing sports games. Games where you rolled dice and you created this whole world. I created war games, all these different things that my imagination was doing. And then when I'd take walks and stuff, I was thinking about the world. I was going through all kinds of fantasies. I was dreaming about the future, okay? I was innocent, like children are supposed to be. And in their innocence, I was opening up to the world and I was experiencing the world as it is. Because the reality is, we are born into a very, very strange and mysterious and wondrous world, which is the subject of my book, right? You take everything for granted, but you don't realize that to be alive, the odds against you being Chris Williamson are absolutely astronomical. To be around with all this technology where we were as humans 20,000 years ago, something you can't even begin to fathom. And when you're a child, you ask these questions. Albert Einstein said the same thing, He said, genius is able to keep questioning, to be that child, to keep wondering about things, right? So your ability to wonder, to ask questions, to not feel like you know all the answers, isn't a beautiful thing? It's not just to make you more intelligent, it also makes you happier. So cynics start from a place where they know everything. The world is just so rotten. It's just everybody is out for power. People will accuse me of saying that, but it's not true. Everyone's out for power. Everyone's got like an ulterior motive. It's all just about these. You're really not interested in other people, Robert. You're interested in making money, right? Cynicism reduces everything to this one level. It has nothing to do with reality, because reality is much richer and weirder and more mysterious than that. So when you're a cynic, you're missing the beauty of life. But also people don't like to be around cynics. The court cynic is, to get back to your question, because, people like maybe some sarcasm. I don't deny that. But people want to feel that sense of innocence. They want to feel excited. They want to feel enthusiastic. And if you're a Debbie Downer, if everything is like, oh, that's what's really going on here, you're not really blah, 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 blah. People will be like, yeah, they'll maybe laugh at your jokes, but eventually they're going to push you aside because they don't want to hear that kind of stuff.
Play and enthusiasm.
Huh?
Play and enthusiasm again.
We're coming back to play.
Yeah. I've been using my 8 Sleep mattress for years, and I absolutely love it. I used to find myself waking up in the middle of the... Similar to another tweet you had, which I loved. The stupidest people are always the ones who think they have the right answers.
Yeah. Yeah, so getting back to my studies of the ancient world, which is main part of me, one thing that always excited me was this concept of the ancient Greeks, that more harm is caused in this world by stupid, incompetent people than by evil people, right? And there's a word in Greek called phronesis, which is a form of wisdom, to use your title here, but it's a form of practical wisdom. to be able to get things done, to navigate through life, navigate through people, to be balanced and get things done. Okay? So, what makes people stupid, and right now we have a lot of stupid people in this world. There always have been stupid people, but because there are more people on the planet, exponentially, there are more stupid people on the planet.